everybody. Welcome back to Relentless Endeavor's Let's Talk podcast to get the generations talking. This is Sherry Thompson, the director of Relentless Endeavor, with Peter Thompson, my son and millennial. And our conversations are to get the generations, mine, boomers and Gen X, talking with millennials and Gen Z to see how we can meet in the middle, understand each other better, learn from each other. And today's topic is goal setting. So, Peter, I just want to start off by asking you what you remember, if anything, honestly, about learning to set goals as you were growing up. Did we even talk to you about setting goals? Or do you remember a goal that you had that you actually worked toward and then achieved, let's say, before you were 18?
Yeah, we didn't talk about goals a ton of the time. I think some of that is just because growing up, things were kind of segmented. There was like when I was in elementary school, there was like the go try and get people to sponsor you for a certain number of laps you run at school. And that was like one goal. But I didn't really like talking to people, so I didn't put a lot of pressure on myself to actually like accomplish it. The main goal I think of when I think of like childhood basically is I remember one summer you set a reading goal for me of like 10,000 pages or something. And you said,
I do remember that.
I'll pay you a penny a page for every page you read past that goal. And I think I still have, I kept track in like the front of a notebook, the pages past that. So I hit the 10,000 page mark. And then I think you ended up owing me like $32 or something because I read like 3,200 pages. And when you started seeing how many pages I was reading, you were like, that's fine. This isn't going to be like cash money though. Like we're going to make you spend this money on more books, which I was completely fine with because I was like, hey, more books to read. Great. So that was one goal. I don't remember the specific page count. It was something like 10,000. Because
it was pretty big. And I was astounded that you like got there and kept going. Yeah.
Yeah. The only other one I can think of is when I was 16, I was mowing a couple of lawns, kind of inconsistently. But I got like a chunk of change for my birthday when I turned 16. And I decided I wanted to have my own computer, because I had like the Dell magazine in front of me or whatever. And it was like, computers starting at $210. And I was like, oh, sweet. Well, if I've got $100 for my birthday, I'm halfway there. That quickly turned into, oh, that's just the base price of a computer that doesn't include, and this wasn't a laptop, this was like a desktop. So I would have to buy keyboard, mouse, monitor.
Sure.
It was not going to be a great computer. So when I was like, oh, I want to get a better processor. Oh, that's another $100. Oh, I want more RAM. Oh, that's another $100. So like it scaled up super quick, but I was like, I think I can save for a laptop. And I think I saved over the course of 2 years, just doing lawn mowing and stuff. I bought a laptop. It was about $1,000 at the time. And I bought it because it had a Blu-ray player in it.
I remember that.
Yeah, I think you have that laptop now. I think it's in the basement there. So I remember that being like a goal that I set. It took me 2 years. So I was 18 by the time I got it done. If I remember.
But that's pretty amazing. That's a long time to stick with a goal.
Well, actually, no.
Honestly.
I think it might have been when I turned 14, and then when I turned 16, I got
16, yeah.
a laptop because I remember taking it to history class, and I was like the only one that had a laptop. And by the end of the year, I had to sit in the very back because when I was taking notes on it, and it wouldn't stay, the battery wouldn't last the whole time. And that was when I was 16. So I think that's what it was. When I was 14, I set the goal to have my own computer. When I was 16, I bought it.
Okay. Well, I just, I know that we really didn't talk a lot about hey, let's sit down and think about some goals. I do know that we planned a lot. We always planned a lot as a family. If we were going on a vacation, we were making lists. What are some things that you want to do? Some things that you want to see, places you want to go, that kind of thing. So we were real list makers, but we really didn't talk about a lot about goals.
Mm-hmm.
And the goals that we might have talked about were things like that, like saving money for a certain event, um, as opposed to goals of who you want to be as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, well, I kind of wanted to think through that. I don't remember ever really being told about goals either,
Mm-hmm.
on how to set goals. But I do have two phrases that I want us to talk about, because these are the phrases that I think a lot of boomers and Gen X grew up with and probably passed on to our kids. Um, so I would just love your feedback, positive and negative, on
Mm-hmm.
these two. And one of the phrases is just do your best.
Okay.
So um, I was taught, a lot of times growing up, if I was in band, so I was going for first chair. I wanted to, you know, you just had to try out and you were able to get whatever chair that you could get. And I typically landed in second. Occasionally I got to first, but it wasn't because I set the goal to get there. It was just because I was just doing my best. And on that day, my best happened to be better than the other person. But I kind of live by that. Just do your best. So I just want to throw that out to you, as far as, do you remember us saying just do your best? Has that been something that you've thought about while you were growing up, that was ringing around, that, okay, just do your best, whether it was hockey or school? And then, let's just talk about what are some good things about that and what are some maybe not so good things about living by that phrase.
Yeah. I would say I remember the phrase, but I don't remember it being like a positive or negative thing. It was just kind of it it was used as a phrase. It was like, just do your best. That's all you can do. That was kind of the tagline on the end of it that
Mm-hmm.
I remember, where it was like, but it wasn't used in the concept of goal setting. It was used in the amount of effort we were supposed to like expend towards something. So, or like when we were getting frustrated with a paper or something, it was, just do your best. That's all you can do. Just put the effort in that you can. Write a good paper, but don't beat yourself up if it's not an A, that kind of a thing. So just do your best was like the first half of the phrase that I remember. The second half being, that's all you can do, which, thinking about it, is not a great way to end that. Because like, if you think about it, like, your best can always improve. Like, just like people that go to the gym, they don't start off benching 315. They start off benching the bar, and then they push harder, and then they get up to, they put some fives on the side, and then they put tens on the side, and then they put
So your best
25s.
gets
Like,
better.
your best can get better. So the whole just do your best, that's all you can do, almost seems limiting in that in a way. But in the context in which like I heard it, it was around like one-time things, like a homework assignment, you're writing a
Mm-hmm. Okay.
paper. When I was tired and didn't want to mow the lawn, just do your best. Like, that's what it is, like that kind of a thing. So it was more like a consolation almost, or not like a rude suck it up and get it done, but like I know this is hard, let's just get through it kind of
Mm,
um,
yeah.
tone, I guess, in which I heard it.
Well, I think that phrase is meant to be freeing. You know, you're not in competition with, yes, in life you are, and sometimes in competition with other people.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were trying to hit the baseball during a game and
Mm-hmm.
it was your turn up to bat, to say, do your best. Well, if I said hit the ball and you didn't hit the ball, or if you were in hockey and you were, trying to make a goal, if your best didn't get in, but you skated well and you worked hard, then I think our aim was that you would feel I played hard, whether I scored or not. I played hard. I
Mm-hmm.
did my best. So it was. I think it's meant to be a freeing phrase,
Yeah.
which can be good because I mean, any of us. I mean, we can not do our best. A lot of people don't live by their best.
Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
and sometimes we can sell ourselves short. This is just the best I got today.
Yeah.
When really we could actually maybe give more.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes it can also create some limitations because then what happens if your best isn't good enough repeatedly?
Yeah.
So talk about that for just a second as far as, do you think do your best is a helpful overall mantra to live by, or are there some negative things that you need to, does goal setting play into, I guess, if we're talking about goal setting, do your best in goal setting. Do they work together or do they fight each other?
I think it depends on the kind of like we've talked about so far. It depends on the context in which you're aiming the phrase. If you say, just do your best, well, that's different on different days. So if your goal is to, like, I want to get up and I want to do these activities today, just do your best to get them all done. That's a little bit more, that leaves a little bit more gray area. And then if your goal is to say run a marathon, you got to sign up for one. You've got an end time. Like, do your best is like, you're going to be able to tell if it's going to work or not because you're going to get to the marathon starting point and you're going to be able to run or not. So I think it kind of depends on like the lens in which you're deploying that phrase. Because it can mean different things in different situations like that. And then again, weightlifting or something, like, just do your best. Well, my best today, where I haven't gotten much sleep and I worked from home, so I sat on my couch and I didn't do a lot of walking, like around even. My best is going to be different than, say, yesterday, where I got to work at a later time because I wasn't supposed to be there any earlier than I needed to get there. So I got an extra hour and a half of sleep compared to what I got even the day before. I was up and about and I had some energy because I was talking to people. I was fixing problems. Like, there was a mental aspect to it. So, your best means different things on different days. So I think if you're saying just do your best towards a goal, that's different than just do your best today.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's about the best way for me to put that.
Okay. What about, here's another phrase. In hopes of being encouraging, to say something like, you can do whatever you set your mind to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is that true? And
I think,
is that,
I think to an extent it's true. It's true when the results are entirely reliant on you. Like, if you're, if you're 5'9" and you only play pickup basketball on the weekends and you're over the age of even 22, the odds of you making it to the NBA are very slim, because there's people that have been working their whole lives for it. There's people that are naturally more talented.
Sure.
You're fighting against other people in that situation. So do whatever you set your mind to. I mean, yes, because I think that the majority of people can eventually learn and understand and do pretty much anything. But at the same time,
maybe it's that whole, you have to really set your mind to it part.
Yeah, it's to set your mind to it part. But like, when, if your goal is back to the 5K, if your goal is to run a 5K or a marathon or something, yeah, I think, the majority of people average people could probably run a 5K. It would not be quick. It would not be like record time or anything, but I think the majority of the average person could probably do that. I was actually just listening to, I heard a clip from another podcast the other day where this guy was a Navy SEAL, and he's like, frankly, I believe that most of the average people in America could get through 1 day of SEAL training. If they only had to do one, I think the average person could probably do it. It's whether you can get through 127 days of it. That's the difference maker. That's what makes a SEAL, is getting through all the 127 days. So, do whatever you set your mind to. Kind of depends on what you're setting your mind to. If, I'm, almost 31. If my goal is to become a Navy SEAL, I've got a narrow window of time to be able to do that, because they don't accept applicants over a certain age, because they don't want to put that much time and effort into training someone that's going to be forced out at a certain age anyway. So, could I theoretically hit all of the physical stats of a Navy SEAL? Yeah, probably. Do I have the ability to take the time off to do that in a time frame that is going to allow me to join up? Probably not, because I have life and a job and a wife, and I have other priorities. So I think you can do whatever you set your mind to. Yes, with the caveat being, but you can't do everything that you set your mind to.
Okay. And like you said, it depends on if there's other people.
Yeah.
So I can be a lawyer trying a case, and I am setting my mind that I am going to win that case. That does not mean that I'm going to win that case. And I think we all know that. But if we're thinking about goal setting, let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think it's like everybody's talking about goal setting right now. We've got SMART goals, and we're measuring goals right and left, and talk about achieving goals. And so I think it's a whole lot more in the forefront today than it was when you were growing up, and certainly when I was growing up.
Yeah.
So do you have some goals right now? Do you use SMART goals? Do you keep goals in front of you on a piece of paper, or what is your dealing with goals right now look like? Or
I have
having goals and obtaining them.
I have goals in different areas of my life. One of the things is I have goals at work. We're required to set annual goals.
Okay.
And they want us to use the SMART goals outline, SMART being an acronym, which means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So the time bound was annual goals. Relevant, it had to apply to increasing the bottom line of the company. Achievable, we worked on these goals with our managers, so our manager could say, I don't know that you're going to pull that off, or I think that's going to be a little bit too easy. You might need to up it. Measurable. Okay. This one was a little bit hard for me in my specific role, just because we don't have a ton of metrics that we're graded on. And one of the metrics that we actually are graded on went away because we got rid of that product. So the whole send referrals over for that is just done. And then specific, it had to be specific, which it's easy to get specific on goals if you're actually intentionally setting them. I definitely pushed back against setting them because I was like, I don't want to set goals here. I don't have metrics that I'm graded on for the most part. I don't have a deliberate way to increase the bottom line. So I did push back a little bit, and I set goals that, frankly, one of the goals that I set, I deleted before the required time period was up, because I asked my manager, I was like, hey, if we set these and I get to June and I haven't made any headway on one of these, do I delete it? Do I start over? Like, what's the protocol here? And he's like, if you don't think you're going to do it, like, let's just find a different one. So we did. I would say, for me, one of the things I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to lose weight. So I have like a target weight in mind. I have like the weight I want to be and the weight that I'll settle for, depending on how long it takes to get there. And then along with that, I don't have a time frame on that necessarily, just because I've never tried to like super deliberately lose weight in a specific amount of time. I didn't grow up doing the wrestling thing where I had to like lose weight, or I didn't have to I didn't do football. So like, I don't know some of those like for lack of a better term, personal metrics for myself. I don't know how long it's going to take for me to lose a certain amount of weight. I don't know how long it's going to take for me to do that. So that's where the whole, achievable aspect is up in the air, because it's like, I don't know if I can lose this amount of weight in this time frame. So the goal is this amount of weight and see how long it takes to get there with certain actions in play. I'd say one of the big
I think that's
things,
actually how a lot of people's goals are.
yeah.
I want to make $1 million or whatever, but not necessarily by the time I'm 30 or by the time I'm 40. But when I hit $1 million, I will have made my goal. Or I want to travel to all 50 states, but not necessarily within a time frame. So I think that's probably where a lot of people live. It doesn't mean that those goals are not valuable. It just means that there's other things in play, life, spouses, partners, families, jobs.
Which almost makes it more of a dream than a goal, because a dream is like, I would like to fly. Okay, I have no idea if I'm going to accomplish that. You know what I mean? Like maybe skydiving. Okay, I can take some actions towards that, but I don't know. Like I'd have to put a time frame on it. I'd have to sign up for a jump or jump classes or whatever, which would put that time bound aspect on it. I think a dream is like, that would be nice to have sometime. A goal is a dream with a deadline to me. There are certain parts of my life that I want to be better in a certain time frame, which, super generic. Wow. Okay. Well, I would like to be earning additional income outside of my job in a certain ratio by the time Sarah and I move to a bigger place. Okay. That's got a deadline on it because we signed a lease for a bigger place. So we, it's not just I would like to earn more money. It's I would like to earn more money consistently by this time frame. We signed a lease. We're moving in a couple of months. I would like to have the additional income coming in so that I can just add the income on to the increase in lifestyle, for lack of a better term, rather than subtract lifestyle in other areas to have a bigger place. And by bigger place,
make up the difference.
It's not, we're not moving into a mansion or anything like that. We're just moving into a bigger apartment, but it does cost more money. So I would like to have more money coming in so that I'm not, okay, are we putting gas in Sarah's car or my car this week? Like, I don't want to have to make those decisions. I'd rather just, nope, we're making more money outside of work so we can pay for this increase, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing I see that I love about millennials is that, I think a lot of older generations, and some of that was because world events, but we took what life handed us and we made the best out of it. So the greatest generation during World War II, that's what they were having to deal with. And they made the best of it. They came together, they supported each other. They had all these drives for, different products. They all sacrificed for a common goal of sort of just helping the nation win a war. But then the next generation and boomers, we just kind of took whatever life handed us and made the best out of it. And a lot of that is, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And so we were doing our best with whatever was handed to us. But what I love about millennials is I'm seeing this intentional goal setting, intentional dreaming. And because I think when you don't have a goal, you don't have a dream to set goals against, you can end up places in life that you never intended to go. And obviously we've talked about that with Relentless Endeavor. And one of the reasons we are in this ministry is because there's a lot of young people at 18 that don't have necessarily a dream or a goal, that by the time they're 30, they're going to be completely, heavily in debt and in a dead end job, and maybe not even living a lifestyle that is anything that they would dream or that matches their faith, or that they would even be, hey, I'm going to walk away from my faith in the next decade. But what happens is when they're not intentionally setting a goal, setting a dream, or setting a dream and then goals to achieve that, that's where they end up. And they
Mm-hmm.
look at themselves at 30 and go, how in the world did I get here? Because they
Yeah.
didn't have a dream. They didn't have any goals. So what I love about your generation is many of you intentionally setting goals and then working to achieve those things. And no, it doesn't always come out the way you want it to. But it's that old thing, if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time.
Yeah.
So, but if you aim somewhere on the bullseye, even if you don't get the bullseye, if you hit the target that's closer, then not even taking a shot.
Yeah.
And I love that millennials do that. And what I want my generation to understand is that one of the ways that we can support millennials and help millennials is to talk about what are your dreams and what are your goals?
Yeah.
And is there a way that I can help you achieve that? We have
Mm-hmm.
the mentorship program in Relentless Endeavor. And I really hope that that's something that our mentors can do for young people I say young people, millennials and Gen Z. I want our mentors to be talking to you guys about, okay, what are your dreams? What are your goals? And then be checking in with you and helping you set realistic goals, but goals that also have a dream that are going to push you.
Mm-hmm.
But then also checking in with you and encouraging you to keep going on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think that's an important piece.
Yeah, and you mentioned world events and how you think it kind of influenced a little bit. I was listening to another podcast the other day again, and it was a Vietnam vet, and he was talking about the difference in veterans returning home from World War II versus Vietnam, because with World War II, first of all, there was a very specific end. The goal was to defeat the Germans. You know what I mean? So when the treaty was signed, okay, that's the end. You know what I mean? Like there was a definitive end to it. And then the other thing he said was that, whole companies were shipped home together. So not only was there decided victory, this specific moment, but all the guys that you just did everything with, you were shipped home together. Well, shipped home meant on a boat. So you spent 3 to 4 weeks on a boat with all your guys that you just did all of this with, and you were able to kind of process things together, versus Vietnam, where they would say, okay, we're going to Raleigh, North Carolina. So you're from Raleigh, you're from Raleigh, you're from Raleigh, you're from Raleigh, and all these different companies, and they would throw them on a plane together, and then they would send them home. And they didn't know any of these people; they just knew they were going home, and they went on planes. So they didn't have it was a really quick transition compared to World War II. But also, the way Vietnam ended was not great. There was no real good way. Talk about not having metrics. Like there was no way. It was an unwinnable war in a lot of ways because nobody knew what the goal was other than just fight communism.
And there was no definitive end. We're celebrating in the streets.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like,
treaty signed, it's all over.
Yeah, and there wasn't even like we lost. Like, by all reasonable metrics, we kind of lost in the sense that we fled, but not in the sense that it would. I mean, that's the other thing where it's a police action, not a war, so there's no true end to it. Like that's its own thing. But you get into it and you're like, why? Like, what's the goal here? You know what I mean? We're not.
Yeah.
So I think that's the other part of it. You're talking about different generations there. You've got the World War II generation, then you get the Vietnam generation, and I think a lot of if you trace it back through war, global war on terror is much more similar to Vietnam, where we went there in response to things, but not with a definitive end goal in mind necessarily.
Well, and it's kind of just ongoing.
Yeah. So that's the other issue. But then, my generation, millennials, we saw what not having goals did for people. The generation before us, the goal was to, the Vietnam era, the boomers and the Gen X, having a college degree meant more. It meant a better job. It meant more stability because of the better job, that whole thing. Okay. Well, when your goal is a college degree and it's done at 22 and you haven't set a goal after that, it's like, okay, what are we doing then? Like
Right.
This life goal that I've been propped up and aimed at for the first 22 years of my life is done now. Now what am I supposed to do? So I think we start, and then college degrees started mattering less, and that's a whole separate topic. But
other thing, yeah. Well, when we got out of college, the goal was to get a job.
Yeah.
And you stayed in that job for 40 years,
and
then you retired. So you had a goal to get a college, get a degree, get a job, and then you worked. That was the goal. That is not how you all are living your lives anymore. No. And it's not how jobs are working anymore.
No, and for a variety of reasons, which that can be its own topic at some point. But there's a variety of different reasons behind it. Some of it is just there's more volatility in in different business spaces. But then the other thing is a lot of companies, they don't last. Simply, they don't last as long as they used to. I look at Silicon Valley in particular. A lot of people are just doing a bunch of VC fundraising and stuff because the goal is to get just enough of a product, just enough of an app for Facebook to come buy you. That you're not trying to build an app forever. You're not trying to build a feature. You're not trying to do something forever anymore. You're just trying to last long enough for somebody to come along and buy you, and then they just integrate that in to their existing app. So we need to do a podcast on work and jobs. Yes, maybe that can be the next one we do.
And how those are different. Exactly. Well, kind of close us out here. There's a verse in Colossians that I know that I know that you know, because I made all of my students write this out, and this was our mantra for the year. And Colossians 3:17, whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. And I think, goals, when we have a dream and we set a goal to meet that dream, that really gives God honor. It keeps our life from just floating around. Yes, every day we get up and whatever we do in that day should give God glory. But then also, I think it gives him glory when we set a goal and we work toward that and we achieve that. And we push ourselves to be better people, to be more generous, to be more helpful, to be smarter, to be in better physical shape. All of those things, I think, are also part of that. Whatever you do, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, because that gives him glory. And if we do just sit around and let life come at us and then we just sort of react to it, it can give him glory depending on how we react to it. But it also, it doesn't honor the gift of the body and the brain that he gave us to use. So I think I love that your generation is talking a lot about goals. And I hope your goal for getting healthy and some of your financial goals and your health goals and all of that, I love to see you achieving those. I've got my own as well. I know that I have set the same goal for years in a row but I had the dream, but I didn't actually set the steps to reach the goal. I just had it kind of out there as this nebulous, I'm going to be healthier, or I'm going to, lose weight, or I'm going to be stronger, or whatever. But if it's not measurable, it's really hard to know when you've met that goal. So I do think your generation and your goal setting, I think, is really admirable. And I think there's a lot to be learned from that, and a lot for you to pass on to Gen Z and the generations coming after too, so that they have something to aim at with their lives as well. So, okay. All right. Well, thank you. Good talk about this. And I think next time we'll probably talk maybe about work and jobs, and because those are completely different perspectives a lot, I think, between generations, what it means to work, what it means to have a job, what are your expectations in jobs. So let's get that one on the books, and we will talk about that next. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for your time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Everybody, we will see you next time on the Relentless Endeavor Let's Talk podcast to get the generations talking.
The views expressed in this podcast are personal opinions and do not reflect those of any organization. The speakers are not licensed therapists, and their insights are based on their own experiences. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered professional advice. Listeners are encouraged to seek qualified professionals for specific guidance. And by accessing this podcast, you agree that the individuals speaking in this podcast are not liable for any outcomes or consequences that may arise as a result.